panel on B2B and specifically the influence of mobile in B2B. So I'd like to just quickly introduce myself. So Peter Sheldon, I head up strategy here at Magento, and in my past life as an analyst at Forrester, spent a lot of time covering the B2B e-commerce space, and especially the sort of influence that mobile's having. And so very excited here today to have three panelists, and I'll introduce them in a moment. But first of all, just set the context of what we're here to talk about. And we're here to talk about the influence that mobile is having in B2B space. Now, we always hear, and we've heard consistently, we heard it on the stage this morning, etc., just how influential mobile has been in B2C. And we talk to a lot of retailers, online retailers. We hear some time ago, 2 years ago, that more than half of all web traffic was coming from mobile devices. And now, it's pretty typical that a lot of retailers, B2C retailers, 20% of their total order volume is coming from mobile, sometimes higher than that. Now, the interesting thing is we often don't hear about B2B, or it doesn't get enough attention. And the reality is that B2B in mobile is far more mature than it is in B2C, and the adoption is much, much higher. And so in B2B, we see some companies already, 40% of their total online orders are coming through mobile devices. And the nature of B2B is that we have a buyer who is very, very engaged with the brand, who is generally has a very high sort of annual spend with the brand, and is a repeat purchaser. And those three characteristics of someone that's highly engaged with the brand, spends a lot of money, and does a lot of repeat purchases is a perfect storm for mobile. And so what we're here today to do is to sort of pick the brains of our esteemed panelists here, and then we'll also at the end open up for sort of general Q&A, but really sort of dive into exactly how influential mobile is being and where this is all going as it relates to mobile and B2B. So I'd like to sort of first of all start, and I'll have our panelists sort of introduce themselves and talk a little bit, maybe just 2 or 3 minutes if each of you can, just tell us a bit about yourself and your company and your exposure to B2B and use of Magento. So Brad, I'll start with you.
Great, thank you. Thank you everyone for coming. My name is Brad Kuhns, and I'm the Senior Manager for US e-commerce at Zoetis. You may not have heard of us. We actually used to be Pfizer Animal Health, a 60-year-old subsidiary of Pfizer, and we spun off in an IPO 3 years ago. Largest IPO since Facebook, very successful. We came out at 26, and our stock has almost doubled in 3 years, so we've been very happy as an independent company. At the same time is when we launched our e-commerce site as well. So it's been live for almost 3 years. We've seen exponential growth with the site. We've been very happy with it. It's for our direct customers in the US, veterinarians. And what I'm going to talk about today is actually mobile for our field force. We have a 1,000-member field force in the US, and about half of that field force uses an app that's powered by Magento to place orders.
Great, and Laura.
Hi, I'm Laura Van Sickle, and I'm with SureGrip Footwear. And we manufacture and market slip-resistant shoes for service professionals in lots of different industries, like grocery stores, restaurants, healthcare, hospitality. And our B2B component is that we have to sell our program into the risk manager or the HR director of that company. And then once we sell our program in, we're ultimately selling to the end consumer, which are the employees of those companies.
Great, and Mark.
Hi, I'm Mark Zosky. I'm the CEO of Saltworks. We're the largest gourmet salt company in the world. We sell gourmet salt to retailers, Fortune 500 companies, manufacturers, and we did a full platform switch from a hand-built platform to Magento Enterprise and put 2 sites in one, a B2C component and a B2B component. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, so I'm going to start handing over the hard questions and sort of digging in a little bit into your businesses. So Laura, I'm going to pick on you first. You have an interesting sort of channel model, and you're not your traditional B2B. You have this B2B to C model. So you're selling your products into an account who is ultimately provisioning the non-slip shoes to an end employee, it's from the employee's perspective, it's very much a B2C purchase, but there's this account in the middle. Can you talk us through a little bit about that business model and sort of, first of all, I think it's sort of that sales model, and then talk a little bit about why mobile is important in that model.
Absolutely. So like Peter said, we have kind of a hybrid model, and we're selling our program into risk managers, but ultimately our end consumer is the employees themselves. So in 2014, we replatformed to Magento for a number of reasons, but one of the big components that we knew we had to design into the website was responsive design. And there's really two reasons for that. One is if you think about the employees that are working in restaurants and grocery stores and hospitality situations, they're millennials. And millennials they do everything on smartphones. So we knew that, in order to sell that into the risk managers, we had to make it easy for the employees to shop and purchase the shoes, and the millennials were a big component. The other thing is we have hundreds of what we call co-branded microsites that are specifically for the company where the employees work. And we knew that we had to have one platform that kind of took care of everything versus an app and mobile this, mobile that. So we went with a responsive design, and we're really happy with it.
Can you share with us a little bit about sort of the end buyer, the employees? How many of them are buying through mobile device versus through desktop device?
Yeah, it's a good question. We found that about 40% of the traffic is done on mobile, but about 10% of the purchases. And we think there's a reason for that. In a lot of cases with our customers, they mandate that the manager actually places the order for the employee. So the employee's out there looking at what they can select, and then they have to kind of hand the order off to the manager in the back office with their PC. But we get about 10% of our end transactions are done on a mobile device.
Yeah, interesting. Brad, can you sort of talk us a little bit? You live in a slightly different world where mobile for you is all about the app and enabling the sales rep, account manager out in the field with that app. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? Because that's different from sort of the responsive design world.
Yeah, it is. It was actually relatively revolutionary for us because we had our field force emailing orders, faxing orders, calling in orders. We had one rep who used to say, I hate to try and take the order in person. I want to look like I can remember what it is. So after he came out of the veterinarian's office, he'd run to his car and he'd take one of those whiteboard markers and he'd write the order on his windshield. And then he would call it in. And so that's kind of the extreme, but when we launched the app, it was revolutionary for our field force. And it also kind of solved for what you were just talking about as well. We had multiple layers of permissions that need to happen and approvals that needed to happen as well. And so we were able to build some of that into the app, and also we were able to convince our field force that maybe they didn't need some of this. You need to get someone to sign off on this. You need to do this as well. One example is that our representatives are allowed to sample, so they can give sample products to their customers. They can sample themselves, so they have things with them when they're traveling. And so now what we do is, or what we did when we launched the app is, we give them their sample budget on there. They can see it. They can order samples at decrements out, so they always know where they are as well. And then if we need to make an increase, they just have to reach out to their manager, and their manager can put it into the back end, and it updates on the app. But it's been critical to our success as we've grown over the last 3 years with having that automation there. Because it allows our reps to focus on what they should be doing, like not taking orders, not faxing and doing spreadsheets in this, talking about new products, talking about new services, and then quickly punching in the order into the app. And if anyone wants to see it, I'd be happy to show you after the session.
So I know that that's the app side of things, but now you're using Magento both to empower your field sales force and give them these great sort of configure price quote tools so they can take orders out in the field, but you're also using Magento for the end customer for doing, product research and buying on more of a sort of direct to consumer. It's still a B2B purchase. Tell us a little bit through that then, and how influential is sort of the mobile transaction there.
Sure. So that's really big for us as well. And what we did is that we designed the front-end shopping site for our end customers to look very close to the app as well. Some of the information isn't on the app because the rep already has it. But what it did is it helped with adoption for the customer-facing side as well, because the rep was able to go out, take an order, and show how easy it was on the app, and then the customer would ask about, oh, do you have a shopping site, or the rep would be able to introduce it. And it was really easy for the rep to give them a quick tour of the shopping site because they were totally familiar with the design and the UI as well. So we actually didn't plan for that. We just wanted everything to look great because we had just done our IPO and we had a whole new set of branding that was really great. So we made sure everything aligned, but it was a nice side effect of launching both at approximately the same time.
Great, interesting. Now, Mark, you're selling salt online. Tell us a little bit about how mobile plays into your business. I mean, because you're selling not just to you sell to sort of larger distributors, but also just very small businesses. So how important is having mobile B2B online shopping capability for yourself?
Well, it's extremely important because previously we got orders from all different directions: emails, phone calls, faxes, and really when the decision makers are making their decision, they're standing out in the restaurant, they're standing in Whole Foods, they're looking at their display and figuring out what they need to order. And instead of making some notes and coming back and faxing in orders, they were able to place it right there on the spot. And kind of aside, we had no idea, but there's a lot of large customers we have that supply to big box stores and that kind of stuff. And they're sitting in meetings or they're in someone's office and they want to check on an order. Before they had to call us, they had to go through our CSRs, and now they can check on their order, they can reorder, they can look at the whole status of their account from their mobile device, which is what they have in their hand all the time versus their desktop, which is some of the time.
And so, interested again, ask the same question I asked before. What's your split then of all of your B2B orders that come through the Magento platform? What's the split between mobile orders versus traditional desktop orders?
Right now, it's higher than what we thought. It's about 25%, but it's growing rapidly because our site's only this new site's only 2.5 months old, so we had to get our customers ported into the new.
So literally right out of the gate, you're at 25%.
Right out of the gate.
Wow.
Right out of the gate, because reorders now are 5 clicks away instead of fax, a follow-up with a phone call.
Right.
It was quite a process.
And just generically, not specific to the mobile channel, so before this, did you have any kind of digital ordering process, or it was all manual based?
Well, yeah, it's a 14-year-old site, so it had gone from a B2C site. We had tried to make it into a B2B site as best we could. And so there was just no way to accommodate purchase orders, lot codes, all the things that food manufacturers or grocery stores need in this new food era, food safety era. So I forget your question, shocker. But it made a big difference. It made a big difference because the whole thing could be done on our site versus components of it.
So now with your new Magento store, what percentage of your total revenues is coming through the kind of B2B e-commerce channel versus fax and phone orders?
Oh, high, 50%,
Right.
50% or more, and that's going to grow as we are educating our larger customers on how easy this is to do.
Do you have a sort of 1-2 year goal for what that number becomes of sort of digital orders?
Well, I think at some point it's going to be 75 or 80%. I can already tell our CSRs are on the phone less. The few times they're on the phone, they're kind of helping people get set up for the first time, explain them how to attach documents and that kind of stuff. But one of the one of the ways that we customized was that there's a login for B2B, so our big customers can get on, see their pricing, see what products really just available for maybe their store or their company, and place the order, which was impossible before.
Interesting, interesting.
And I think what Mark's team has really done nicely, and take a look at his site, it's seasalt.com, right? So what they've really done nicely is that there's a B2C entry point and a B2B entry point in numerous places on the site, and it's really well integrated, and it just feels very natural that you could figure out where you want to go and then log in and then continue on.
Thank you.
Brad, sort of probing in on sort of the same question, from a metrics perspective, where are you today in terms of your percentage of your revenue that's coming through B2B e-commerce, and where are you going to be a year from now, 2 years from now?
So it's so I have to be a little careful here. We're a publicly traded company. And very close to our earnings call. So we're seeing some really nice increases in it. We've been very happy. I mean, I have to say we selected Magento purely because we knew that we wanted to present a very much a B2C experience, both with the website and with the app as well, and it served us well that way. We have all the complexities that everybody else does with B2B. We work with Proficient, who's helped us put together all the data feeds that come from SAP, so we're always showing pricing for a particular customer, promotions as well. And all this shows up on the app too. So when a rep logs in, they only see their customers, they see those customers' order history, they see customer pricing, promotions, et cetera. And like all B2B merchants, we have crazy complicated promotions, and we've been able to work with our technology partners to make those work on the app. The other thing that we've been able to do as well is do some other complex information presentation on it. We have a couple of products that, due to really popular demand, have gone under order limits, so we've had to constrain the amount of product that's gone out, and so we've been able to present that on the app. So previously, our reps had to call in, they had to keep a spreadsheet. It was very difficult to track this product, and now they can just, with a couple of taps, go onto the app and see it. As far as percent of orders, so we have direct business and indirect in the US. So direct is selling directly to veterinarians, and then they either use our products in practice or they send them home with the customer and their pet. And then our indirect business is mainly for the large animal or livestock side. We don't see a lot of indirect business going through these platforms. It's mainly direct. And for the most part, almost a very large percent of our direct business is going through our electronic channels, which we're very happy with. And what it's doing for me, and Mark was kind of answering this question a minute ago, is it's allowing us to look at our customer service team and maybe redefine what those positions look like. Because right now they're taking inbound calls, but if these orders are coming through the electronic platforms, there's an opportunity to redefine those and say, maybe these reps don't take inbound calls. They just do live chat, they reset passwords. For us, new account setup is a little bit complicated because we have to check licenses, we have to check credit, and license checking is a little complicated because it's state by state. So I'm working with our customer service and operations team to potentially redefine what that looks like. So the metrics are helping to drive some of these cultural changes, which are very common in B2C, because anyone you talk to in B2C, the entire customer service team does all this, but I think it's less common in B2B.
Probing a little bit, because what's interesting about your business is that you've invested in building, native apps. That gives you sort of unique access to the hardware on a device and can allow you to do all kinds of things, from location to push notifications, etc. What have you done there? Is there anything from a sort of push notification or sort of digital marketing perspective that you've been able to do by having an app versus just responsive website?
Yeah, no, that's been really great. And since it works online and offline too, oftentimes our representatives are in geographic locations where they don't have a good signal. And so they can still access all the data. They can place orders. The orders just queue up. And when they're back with an LTE or Wi-Fi connection, they just go after that. The most important one I'll just highlight again is order limits. It's a product for us that is really big and will be even bigger in the future. Again, I mentioned that we kind of missed the mark with our forecasting, so we put it under order limits. But we're able to have this information available at the tap of a button for reps as well. We use Salesforce as our CRM, and we use Pitcher as our e-detailer. And so we're looking at making connections between these platforms because there's an opportunity to signal to the rep that really upsell, cross-sell, and related item type messaging. So we found that in, I think, 95% of orders placed over the phone, they include one particular product. It's kind of like a staple for veterinarians. It's called Clavamox. But we found only 50% of orders placed on the app contain Clavamox. Why? We have no idea. But what we're looking at doing is having push notification that if that item is not in the cart, it's going to prompt them to say, hey, you should probably add this item to the cart. We're also completely revamping our loyalty program right now, and that'll be complete later this year. And so our loyalty programs include need to meet thresholds, and so we'll be doing push notification there as well. So if a customer needs to meet a particular level to get either a rebate or a discount, that will signal to the rep that they need to communicate that to the customer.
Great. Laura, question for you. So you're sort of in this unique B2B to C scenario where you're always trying to win new accounts, basically, and grow your install base. What's this, what are the sort of unique selling points, and what advantage is it giving you, sort of having being on a Magento platform, but also having this mobile experience? Is that a differentiator when you go into a sales cycle and you're trying to bring on a new account, the fact that you have this mobile selling capability for the employee?
Absolutely. The slip-resistant footwear industry, which is like a traditional industry that's been around for a while, that we kind of, laughingly call like the ugly cafeteria lady shoes. What we're able to do with responsive and mobile is traditionally in restaurants and grocery stores specifically, the managers have always been kind of the keepers of who needs shoes. Okay, I need to order the new employees. Okay, we got to return them. What we've gone out to our accounts and said, the last thing your manager of a grocery store or restaurant needs to worry about is having a shoe store in their office, right? So let us empower the employee to self-serve, get the manager out of it. We keep track of everything, and luckily the majority of our employees are purchasing through payroll deduction. So it's really like a one-click payment checkout, which is perfect for mobile. And again, because of the target consumer being the millennial, it's really helped us kind of move the industry along and moved those people along into microsite ordering and mobile ordering, and it's been great.
Very interesting. Now, Mark, when we all sort of chatted, so I got a little bit of insight to what these guys are doing. You have a very interesting scenario, which is very typical of your kind of company. You do a lot of trade shows, and I was fascinated by your story of just how influential and sort of disruptive having the mobile capability has been at the trade shows.
Well, yeah, what we found is trade shows, of course, we gave out samples, we talked to people, we showed them our booth, but the connection of understanding what Saltworks really does, or what we can do for a company, to be able to show them on their phone how to log on, make some kind of contact with us, register in some way, because smaller customers, it's a much shorter sales cycle. Bigger customers, Kraft Foods or something like that, maybe somebody that's doing a protein bar or whatever, the sales cycle is extremely long. So if we can get them in the system, we can start sending them samples, we can follow up, we can do all that kind of stuff. So just handing them a sample and a brochure, they're gone, no real way to follow up on that. If they register on the spot, which works as well with our trade magazine ads, we found that a lot of people had read our trade magazine ads, but they were in the break room, they weren't where they could immediately do something. So our call to action is, jump on our site, it's mobile friendly, and we'll send you samples. And then once they get the samples, we feel like we have the best product in the market. And that closes the deal.
You're literally getting the leads, like the people are walking away from your booth and they're straight on their mobile. And
we actually get sales that before was at the end of the trade show, we would start to get sales. We actually get sales as the trade show is still going on.
Oh, fascinating.
It's out pretty good.
So I'm going to kind of go across the whole panel here, and maybe, Brad, start with you again. What are your top priorities in B2B commerce for the next sort of 6 to 12 months? What are the kind of key things that you're looking to sort of introduce, innovate, both generically and across your sort of Magento platform, but also specific to mobile?
So I guess specific to mobile, so we'll continue to enhance our app, which is called iOrder. We actually just launched, with Proficient's help recently, the ability to do online returns. So, it may sound very simple, but for us, because we have to oftentimes take a look at the product they're returning, it could be a DEA product or there could be something about it that's regulated. They're able to go into the app with just a few taps, go to order history or put in the product name, initiate the return. We send an email automatically confirming it. And then after confirmation by our customer service team, the FedEx labels go out. So it's a very automated process. kind of talking about the trade show thing, I mean, even for this app, always have to continue to make sure that we're innovating and enhancing it just to encourage adoption and make sure that reps are picking it up. And it's interesting because you can find like one little thing that it solves for with someone, and all of a sudden they want to use it. And so now with automated returns, as opposed to having to call in, we're already seeing an increase in reps that weren't using it, now using it as well. So I think continuing to enhance it because it's been super successful for us. I think in general, our customer-facing site is not responsive. We've been waiting for a decision internally to move to Magento 2, and then hearing about Magento 2 Cloud. I'm hoping that that will help the internal conversation about it. But our site does need to be responsive. Our mobile usage on the site right now is actually relatively low. And honestly, I don't know if that's because it's not so great on mobile or because our customers are just not using it on mobile. I think right now the entire site's behind a login because it is a lot of prescription products. But a priority for us in the next 12 months is opening an OTC store, if you will. We do have a lot of products that don't require a prescription, especially in the equine, the horse space. These products are available in like farm and garden stores, and there's an opportunity there to sell products online as well. And also with our customers, our branding, people are like crazy about our branding. They're not doing tattoos, like Magento tattoos like we saw earlier this morning, but we have a lot of branded merchandise that whenever we have it out for sale, customers go nuts for it. So I'd like to put the branded merchandise on the OTC site. So that's the things that I'm looking at.
A lot on the roadmap then. Laura, what are your sort of big priorities?
Well, I got a couple things, and one I just thought of 30 minutes ago when I was in one of the B2B sessions, and it kind of goes with what Brad's been talking about, but our little tiny division is part of a $3 billion company, and believe it or not, that $3 billion company still requires our accounts to fill out a paper credit application and fax or email it in. And then sometimes it gets lost. Did it get to the right person? I'm sure all of you know that drill. I definitely want to automate that process and talk to you and see if you do that. Automate that process and make it easier for the reps when they're right there with the account, or the account, if they get a credit app, they will put it on the bottom of a pile and you may never even see it for months. So automating credit apps is a big thing. And then the second thing is we are using Salesforce.com as our B2B CRM, and we're also using their, I don't know if you call it an extension or engine called Pardot. It's their marketing extension, and certainly need to get a lot more refined and sophisticated about how we are putting leads into the top of the funnel and how we are communicating with them electronically throughout that sales funnel and qualifying them as leads. But that's something that we want to be doing this year.
Fantastic. And Mark, priorities for the next sort of 6 to 12 months?
Well, we built our site on content, so it was all about people just coming there for free and learning about salt and then while they were there, if they decided they liked what they heard, then maybe they would buy something. So we're trying to increase that, or really work hard on doing that on the B2B side, because we found that there's a lot of large companies that don't really understand just how easy it is to switch from refined salt to sea salt or to one of our mineral salts. So that is one area, is just more content creation to bring more people to the site. We've started to do a lead generation filter where people, as they start to fill out an application, the application actually changes as they fill it out. So we don't end up with 50 applications that look identical. We can really quickly find out if someone is what I call a big fish versus someone that we can have maybe a CSR or one of our junior salespeople handle, versus get on this immediately. This could be a really big order.
Got it. One last question I'm going to ask the panel, and we'll open it up to the audience for Q&A. I'm interested, going back to mobile for a moment and talking about sort of metrics and ROI. How are you ultimately measuring the success of your mobile B2B strategy, and how is that sort of being communicated up to sort of senior leadership, and how what are the metrics that they're measuring success by?
I'll take that first. So I guess for me, I'm fortunate that our headquarters office is relatively small, and I've been at the company for 4.5 years, so I do have access to our executive team, both in the US and globally. It's interesting because, again, I wish I could share some hard numbers, but I mean, we've seen on the app sales essentially close to double over the last 2 years. And so the first year, it was like, oh, that's nice, you're doing X amount in sales. Second year was like, I got the attention of maybe a couple more people. Oh, you're doing that. And then when 2015 ended, they're like, why didn't you tell me you were doing all this business? And so I've been carrying around this PowerPoint on my computer, with this org chart of the scenario I described earlier of making some of our customer service team more e-commerce, I order inside salespeople. And so I'm hoping that, that's going to support that transition as we move throughout 2016.
So it's kind of the success of the mobile app has kind of taken the leadership team by surprise, really, and now you've got their attention.
Yes, yeah. And I think, as I mentioned earlier, I think the shift of allowing the field to not have to be order takers and to focus on new business is really good. And so I think that's where they really see value in our sales leadership organization. And so they're definitely in support of it.
That's driving both cost efficiencies and additional net new opportunities in business.
Yeah.
I'll ask the same question of all of you, so Laura. Metrics.
We have a really small team, and we never really had to sell the mobile component, or because we knew when we were redesigning our platform a couple years ago, we all knew we needed mobile, and we knew that even though my superiors didn't know what responsive design meant. Once I showed it to them, and the salespeople as well, they totally got it and bought into it. So we haven't had to do really a hard sell. What's interesting for us is having to sell it to our accounts who are used to having their hands on all the purchases of the employees. And once they can let that go for the employee to self-serve and ship to their home, they love it. And they don't want to leave us. So conversions, are pretty much the metric we use.
Yeah. And Mark,
to reinforce.
I mean, you're the CEO. What are the numbers that you kind of keep a track on every day?
Well, obviously sales.
Yeah.
Sales look pretty good. But we were just shocked at how many new wholesale account applications. I think before we averaged about 2 to 3 a day. And that seemed like a lot at the time, but it is somewhere between 15 and 25 a day. And some of them are probably just playing with the site or just seeing if we'll throw out pricing just to anyone. But new large customers are up by a considerable amount. Last month was record month. So that's the first full month of our Magento deployment. And we had a record month.
And you're allowing a complete self-serve account creation process in the mobile experience.
Yeah, there's just the trigger of accepting them, accepting their pricing level. But other than that, once they are set up, then it's
from when they submit that self-serve sort of account creation. How quickly are you making that decision and accepting them? Is that pretty quick?
It's extremely quick, and one of the reasons why is because our CSRs and our salespeople that were on the phone talking to people about all kinds of nonsense are now actually are looking at or going through those and qualifying different people and then moving them up the chain to our full-time.
I get a very quick response to that, and then go straight from account sign up to purchase.
Oh yeah, I mean it's usually done same day. We're kind of a same-day company.
Great. Well, listen, what I want to do now, we've got 5-10 minutes left. I'd love to open up to the floor. We've got a microphone here at the front, so if you have questions for a panel, please raise your hands and don't be shy. Please raise your hands. There's a question.
Hi guys, Brian Beck from Guidance. Just a question for you. We do quite a bit of B2B work. One of the things that we find with some of our clients when they're first thinking about e-commerce is the sales team and fear amongst the sales team of e-commerce in terms of taking or customer relationships, kind of disintermediating the sales team in a sense. What have you guys found in terms of you guys are all in e-commerce? What have you found? How did you manage that? Did you experience that? What was your Did you change process? Did you do education, training, et cetera? Kind of how did you manage that, or just kind of force the change?
I think for us, having the app really helped that. I mentioned earlier that it's helped with adoption on the site as well because our reps are completely comfortable with the UI and they're comfortable demoing the site. But I think at the same time that we launched the shopping site, or within a couple of months, we launched the app. So it's sort of like everybody started doing something electronically at once, so it was kind of like we're all in it together. For us, also, our reps stay aligned to their accounts no matter what. So they still get their commission. And so a really smart rep is going to say, okay, this account likes to order online. Maybe I only have to see them every other month instead of once a month. And so the ones that are making that decision, I think, again, are the smart ones and are kind of leveraging it to help them and at the same time help their customer.
Yeah, I would say that we had probably a 50-50 split between our sales reps. You've got kind of the old school guys and then some of the newer, younger guys that are comfortable with technology.
Do they stay aligned for credit?
Do they stay aligned?
Yeah, if the customer orders online.
Oh, absolutely.
They do, okay.
Absolutely. Yeah, you can't
Okay.
be messing with the commissions. I mean, you really have to do that to get their buy-in. We also introduced Salesforce.com at the same time, and that was a bit of a learning curve. We had to do a lot of training around it. But what I will say, kind of our biggest issue right now is that the salespeople will go out and say, oh yeah, well, our site can do that. And then they'll call Mike, and Mike will go, well, and it'll take him, a little while to do it, but promising things that they think is very easy, technologically to do. So we have to kind of rein them back sometimes, because each account likes different specific things on their microsite. So that's one of our challenges.
For us, actually, our salespeople drove this. They were using GP. They were staring at a screen with Microsoft Dynamics, and they were talking to a customer that was looking at products that weren't there. So for us to have this B2B side and be able to show pallets and super bags and grain size and everything else, they're both having the same experience. They could both share a cart. They love it. But we don't have an outside sales staff, so this is people that get to be sitting at their desk and using this functionality.
One other thing that I do is I essentially have an advisory board for both the app and for the shopping site, and that's the reps. And so I'm always very open about soliciting feedback, taking their suggestions, making sure they're involved in developing enhancements. I even make them do UAT, because I'm like, if you want to be involved, and then you can suggest things that we might not have thought about. Our company uses Chatter, and so previously we had to put things like this out there, say an invitation to an advisory board through a formal email channel that went through our communications team. But once we got Chatter, very similar to anything digital, all of a sudden all bets were off with communication. So I have the biggest group on Chatter for our entire company, and all the reps are part of it, and so it's very interactive. They suggest things, other people comment. I can usually say, listen, it's going on the future enhancement list, not sure when it's going to come up, but it's a great idea, and it just keeps the dialogue going.
That's a great idea.
Great, question at the back. We'll just bring the microphone.
Could you talk about the marketing strategies that you used from a mobile perspective to drive traffic to your mobile experiences? Like what changed from the traditional desktop approach?
Well, for us, being able to rank high in Google organic search was huge. You always hope someone will put in a search like, gourmet, wholesale, sea salt or whatever, but they don't. They just put in salt or sea salt, and so being able to have something that they can do from their phone. A lot of times you're thinking about this when you're sitting in a movie or sitting in a meeting, or you're not just at your desk. So having a responsive site that can go either way. That's the other thing. A lot of these people start out as just consumers. They buy our salt, and then they go in and pitch it to their company. So
That and your amazing URL. How did you get that?
I'm embarrassed. I bought it for $400 from someone about 10 years ago. We started with saltworks.us,
Okay.
which was a mistake, and then decided that we would switch to seasalt.com. Took years to pull this all off. So when we went from our old site, we had to do a double domain switch, launch 2 full sites that are both under the same umbrella, plus reroute all that 14 years worth of SEO and PageRank to the proper pages on there. It was a cliff dive because there was no switching back. So when we said go, there was no plan for how to get back to the old URL.
So going along with what Mark said, I wanted to throw out a tip to those of you that mobile is new to your B2B site. You may or may not know this, but Google rewards you with a mobile-friendly badge if they consider your site to be mobile-friendly. So if you're in the organic search. So if you need to figure out what they consider, is your site mobile-friendly, you can Google that, and it takes like 1 minute, and then they can give you some metrics and some suggestions on what you have to do to get that mobile-friendly badge, which I think is key when people are looking on their phone, because, by the way, someone in Magento, maybe Peter, this is for you. I was searching the extension store in between one of the other sessions, and it's not mobile-friendly.
We'll get that fixed. Any other questions? Yep. We'll make this the last one because we're almost out of time.
So one of the interesting things with mobile and B2B is the ability to kind of enable like a field force or like a customer who's out in the field doing something with information. I'm wondering if you guys considered anything like that. Like Laura, I can imagine for you, like you're saying some of those buyers are out there in the store browsing the site saying, hey, what type of shoe do I need? Like if you thought about, hey, if your floor looks like this, you need that type of shoes. They could like look on their phone and say, yes, my floor has ice or peanuts on it or whatever, and I need this type of shoe. Like have you thought through how to enable new types of interactions, being that somebody cannot now access your site on the phone?
That's a great idea, and one I will file away for the employees. Generally, what we're doing is selling our program into risk managers and HR directors that already have a program, and they know slip-resistant shoes reduce slips and falls. They already have hard data on it. There's a couple, they've been with competitors or they've actually tracked that. So it's not so much that we have to sell in having a slip-resistant program because they know they need it. It's more what makes us different, and of course that mobile capability where we can ship to the employee's home and the employee can do it right on their phone with one click. That's the selling point. That's a good point you make.
Great. Well, listen, we're out of time, so thank you for the audience for your questions, but more specifically, thank you very much for our panel. Big round of applause.